Strange sounds echo across the landscape, but they are not of any known animal. They are the roars of an ancient legend. The Wendigo has come. But is this creature flesh and blood, or is it an entity? And has it been depicted wrongfully by Western society? We will discuss the Wendigo next on the Ropin Radio Network. This is the Ropin Radio Network, cryptozoological network in connection with the Cryptozoology Network. I'm your host, Jacob Guerra. This is long overdue, but I've had individuals come forward, get a lot of emails, and I try to get to as many as I can. So if I haven't gotten to yours, please don't feel discouraged. All right, I'll get to them. But this one has been requested for a while. I think a lot of people out there where I live have been asking, what is the true origins of the Wendigo? Now, I know a lot of us are anxiously awaiting Scott Cooper's Antlers that arrives in theaters October 29th. And that one's been trying to debut in the theater for, I think, over a year, maybe even 2 years, as it was supposed to debut, I think, last April. So the questions come up. What is this thing? The first thing that comes to mind is this a demon? Is it a fable? Is it a lesson to be learned? Is it a diabolical spirit? I think the best person to answer these questions would be someone who originates from an indigenous tribe. I've heard many people go over this before, and in some ways I do think they get it wrong. So I think it's important we discuss it here today. And of course, the best place to begin is with my guest who has been on this network before. And I'm very proud to have her here. I'm proud to have her as a member of the network, and that begins this month. So let's welcome back from the Métis Dene tribe, Robin Moonshadow. Hello, Robin.
Hi, Jake, and I shall talk to you in my Indigenous language. Gaitate, she, Robin Moonshadow, Gonse. Hanite, Gonse?
Jacob Guerra, yes. How do you say that again? My name, my full name?
When I ask you your name, you can say Jake or Jacob.
Okay.
And what I said was, what's your name? I said, Hanite, Gonse.
Jacob Guerra.
Shorten it up for everybody. And I introduced myself. I said, hello. My name is Robin Moonshadow.
Well, it's good to have you here, my friend. As always, last time we spoke, it was back in February, I think. So it's long overdue. And I've been wanting to discuss this with you for quite a while, as I've been kind of working it through. Show after show has passed, and now it's time for this one. So I think for me, and for a lot of people here in Oregon, and people here in this county of Marion, we're trying to understand this one, and we want to be able to do it justice, because I know there's a lot of people out there who can take this to heart, and some people who may not want to discuss it at all because they have strong viewpoints about it. And that's okay. That's totally understandable. But on your side, you're more than willing to speak about it and perhaps shed some light on this subject of the Wendigo. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe everybody's idea about this creature is not that it has antlers at all. maybe that's a different kind of creature or a different kind of spirit. We shall see. But Robin, why don't you take us to the very beginning of where this originated from? I was under the impression that it came from the Micmac tribe, but perhaps I'm incorrect. Let's start there. Let's start with the very beginning.
The Wendigo comes from Algonquin and all Anishinaabe tribes that live around the Great Lakes. So around my areas, which is here in Canada, in Ontario, and around your areas as well.
Okay.
They are a very large tribe. And this is where people get confused, where they think that all Indigenous people are the same and we have the same belief system, and we simply don't. Even within a same band there and tribe itself, there might be variations of the same thing. My people, for example, and I always use Bigfoot as an example. My people see it as no different than anything else that's out there, a bear, a wolf, a mountain lion, whichever. And coastal First Nations, I see them as a very special creature.
Okay.
And something to be revered. Other tribes are terrified of them, and others see them as people, and others see them as something completely different. So no, we don't all believe the same things.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll get basically your side of it to tell us about this thing.
Indigo is a couple of different things. And again, there is a variation between the different bands. It's associated with cold, harsh, terrible winters, disease, famine, and cannibalism. It's only seen in the winter months. They're described as emaciated, starving human. Their eyes are sunk deep into their head. Their ribs are showing through their skin. They're pale color or black, dark gray skin. They have chewed away lips, straggly hair with bald patches. They're weak from hunger, and they smell like rotting meat. You can become a Wendigo by choice if you don't correct your bad behavior, which is selfishness, greed, cruelty, laziness, stealing. And the other way to become a Wendigo is you are possessed by a Wendigo. You suddenly start not acting your usual self, and you just become possessed by that spirit. You're a good person one day, and practically overnight you're just acting terrible. For Indigenous people, you're not selfish. Everything you do is for the benefit of your tribe. So if you're greedy and you hoard things and keep things to yourself that the tribe could benefit from, stealing from other ones, doing bad things to tribal members and other tribes and starting trouble, kind of like the 7 deadly sins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if your behavior isn't corrected, you can become a Wendigo that way. And to be possessed, it's the same characteristics, but it's not by choice. As a tribe, you work together to accomplish things. Everything you do is for the benefit of the tribe. So if you act outside of these norms with, like I said, with the selfishness and the greediness, you can be considered a Wendigo. I know a lot of disappearances, especially far, far in the past. These disappearances were considered to be the work of Wendigo, especially during times of famine and disease.
So in a sense, we could say that this is definitely, I see 2 characteristics here. This is something you have to learn from in order to prevent. Kind of like when you mention disease, it's kind of like when people became leopards and they were stricken with that. But unfortunately, that was a disease, and that wasn't something I think they wanted upon themselves. But this is something you can become if you go off a dark path. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like messing with evil spirits, dabbling into
It is.
something that we probably shouldn't be dabbling into. And then it grabs hold and it doesn't let go, kind of like what a poltergeist does. So very intriguing. That's what my suspicion was, but I'm glad for the clarity. That's important.
I wouldn't say that we would have demons as per se, because the word even demon did not exist until colonial times. There are things out there that we have been aware of that you can't explain. They just are there, and we are aware of them, and we are cautious of them. It came along, after colonization, but it's associated with the same thing. It is an evil spirit. It is a demon.
Yeah, I agree. So it's definitely something to avoid, but people unfortunately succumb to it because they haven't learned.
That's true. An example of it was between the differences. Well, my people come from America, so a Wendigo isn't part of our belief system. But because I live here in Canada, and I associate with all the individual tribes that are here, I know about it. And like my great grandmother, who was pure blood Chiricahua Apache, she talked to everybody here. She talked to other Indigenous people here. She's learned all the stories in their belief system. Métis Dene means to me that we are all one people, even though we have separate belief systems, and you love and respect one another. So an example is when my kids were very little and they would go visit their friends, aunt of their friend told the kids if they didn't behave, a Wendigo would get them. And to me, to say that, okay, first of all, you don't treat your kids that way. And to say that, well, the Wendigo was going to get her for being mean to the kids. So I told my kids, that's not part of our belief system, but hey, if she's going to act like that, the Wendigo is going to get her. So
that's
my
reminiscent
kids
of like a
are only
boogeyman.
like 7, 6, and 5. Yeah, it is used as a boogeyman in some of these tribes because it is taken serious.
Okay. Was I?
Yeah,
So
and
it sounds
I
like.
find to go ahead.
Well, I guess. So my original thought was that it originated from the Mi'kmaq tribe, but maybe I'm incorrect on that. It looks like it comes from multiple tribes out there.
It does.
It does.
It's more associated now with the more associated up here mostly. We do have Micmacs up here. I find nowadays with TV shows and movies and things get a lot of things wrong. But Wendigos is part of the Micmac beliefs.
Yeah. And I get a feeling that Hollywood could potentially get something wrong here with their new movie, but at least we had a voice, an Indigenous voice who was working side by side with them. So maybe there is a chance that something changed there. I think there's a good possibility of that.
I've seen the trailers. The overall storyline itself, what I had seen looks correct. What we see with the Wendigo now is the deer skull and the big antlers and a stick looking thing. No, that's a Leshy. That's Slavic. That too was changed over time. A Leshy was a guardian spirit of the forest. They were neutral to benevolent. They would take in lost children and raise them and teach them how to look after themselves. He has many wives and many children. Some are and are not his. And he was a protector of the forest and animals. And that too later changed to what we see now, where it's evil and it's bad and it's going to come and get you, and it kidnaps women and unbaptized children. Like I said, that came along later. So what you see now as a Wendigo is not correct at all. That's again a transformed Leshy. And a Leshy is or was considered part of the fairy family.
Yeah, and I had my suspicions about that too. That maybe there was something that was off. And when you say it, I want to make sure I say this right. Leshy. I think I've heard of this many times.
Leshy or Leshy?
A Leshy has the horns. It takes on the similarities of an animal a protector of the forest, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But again, that too got changed. Leshy's form was that of a giant, or it could shrink to the size of a blade of grass. But typically, it was an old, wise-looking man with long gray beard, and he would reward you for being kind to animals.
Okay. Can you spell
Being kind
Leshy
to
for
each
me?
other.
Yep.
Leshy.
Why? Okay. Fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
there's the
there's various
similarities.
degrees, Leshie or Leshey, but it's Slavic.
Okay. So you think that maybe the differences just kind of got tangled in each other, and that's where everybody thinks that that's what the Wendigo is supposed to look like. It's supposed to look like some sort of a creature with these horns of the skull sometimes, and then in a humanoid body of some sort. It just kind of got lost in there.
Yeah, it did. And I see a lot of other indigenous things get mixed and muddled to make up a Wendigo. I've heard people call Bigfoots Wendigos. No, that's not correct. Stick Indians, that's also not correct. That's neither a Bigfoot. But Stick Indians would be considered Wendigos.
Yeah. Now, is it possible that this creature called the Rake, if you've ever heard of that, could have been just something that's probably a Wendigo, but then just a different version of it?
When the movie The Rake came out, I was like, well, what is a rake? And the writers and directors say that they made that up. So it's not real at all. And I know that there's been some sightings of rakes, especially up here in Canada. One woman, Quebec, Montreal area, said to have a rake, but it's a smudge on the camera and it moves as the camera moves. It was supposed to have been sneaking up on a moose. I saw this video, but if you knew a moose, you're not going to sneak up on a moose.
Yeah.
You're not going to sneak up on a moose because they'll the thing we have up here about moose is stay away from a moose unless you're hunting moose, of course, but they hit you harder than a truck at full force. So, and if you get kicked, you're going to the hospital with several broken things.
I'm sure of it.
They can't see. They can't see, and as big as they are, they like their peripheral vision, so they got to turn their head almost like a bird to see properly.
Yeah.
So yeah, and if you're coming up behind a moose, you're going to get kicked because they can't turn around and see what's there in the way that we do with the frontal facing eyes. So yeah, we consider moose in some cases worse than bears. Moose, no,
I wouldn't either. I've seen some very big moose. Something you would think is prehistoric in a way. The size of it, they're big.
Oh yeah,
they can get
old
ginormous.
too. When I was going on a Bigfoot trip up to Sault Ste. Marie, there was a moose on the side of the road, and it was already 4 hours from here. I don't get moose in my area that often. I did find tracks last year, but I don't get them down here further south that often. So it was cool to get out of the vehicle and look and take pictures. And there's like 20 of us on the side of the road watching the moose and taking pictures. And me and this woman beside me were watching as like these two people started walking towards the moose at the side of the road. And her and I were the only ones to start backing up to slowly be heading towards our car.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't tell you what happened because we got out of there. I mean, that was not a smart thing to do. So two things are going to happen. The moose is going to just leave, or it's going to put its antlers rack down and charge. So we just, yeah. And we're just looking at each other, shaking our heads, and we laughed. So you don't mess with a moose.
No, I wouldn't recommend it. I think there is some actual fact-based situations that have happened involving the Wendigo that you may be able to share with everybody. Something that people who were involved, actual names of tribal members that actually can help add clarity to all this facts-based information. Let's take it. Let's go that direction next.
And this is a true story. In 1878, in Alberta, Canada, there was a gentleman of the Cree tribe named Swift Runner, and his Indigenous name was Taikasha Kitchen. He worked as a guide for the RCMP, and he was a great hunter, and he was really well liked. But he developed a taste for whiskey and was fired from his job at the RCMP. Then in the winter of 1878, he took his whole family into the woods, deep into the woods. His wife, 6 children, his brother, and mother-in-law. Now, several months later, at the beginning of spring, he emerged alone. He was a little disoriented, and he ended up at a Catholic mission, where he told them that his family had starved to death over the winter because they couldn't find any game to hunt. And the priest was suspicious because the other Indigenous people had had quite a bountiful winter with food. But he gave Swift Runner the benefit of the doubt, even though Swift Runner himself looked pretty healthy and hadn't lost any weight. Few months go by, and Swift Runner, he starts having these horrible nightmares, like he was screaming and screaming in his sleep enough to wake up the priest. Now, the final straw came when Swift Runner tried to lead a group of small children into the woods. The police informed the RCMP what had happened, the whole story with Swift Runner. They took him into custody and questioned him and asked him to show them his winter camp. Now, some say that he was really cooperative and happy to show the RCMP his winter camp, and others say that he fought them tooth and nail and was forced to show them the winter camp. Now, when they arrived at the winter camp, the RCMP were horrified because there was human bones scattered everywhere. Some were broken. Some of these bones were broken and snapped in half with the marrow in the middle of the bone, taken out. And even worse than that is they found a pot full of human fat on the stove. Now, what they do say is that Swift Runner, he was horrified. He was in shock. I'd never hurt my family. And people believe this because he was so well liked and he was such a good provider. But he was in shock, and he said, I must have been possessed by an evil spirit called a Wendigo. I couldn't have eaten my entire family. Well, the RCMP didn't believe him, and neither did the jury that convicted him of killing his entire family. And he was sentenced to death and hung for his crimes in 1879.
Interesting.
And this is a true story. And of course, like I said, there are some variations of Wendigos. Another one talks about them being giant ice giants that come down out of the hills during the winter and gobble people up. So a different version of the Wendigo story, and that's an older version of them.
Yeah.
And again, you could turn into these cannibal giants by doing these same outrageous behaviors. There are a few stories of people being turned back to human because even when you're a giant, you live in the heart. So they were able to rescue the heart because the heart is still human. But the only way to defeat the Wendigos is, unfortunately, is the death of the Wendigo.
I see. And actually, that makes sense. Give a little bit more to that. For instance, when you have an evil spirit attach itself onto like a home, I've heard of people actually burning down that structure. And sometimes it actually eradicates them. Kind of in the same sense where it's like, hey, look, somehow this attached itself to you. The atonement here is to pay the price, and that's death, to be able to purify it from the area. And it sounds like, well, as I hear this, I got to say that's heartbreaking. Here's a man who was loved in the community, apparently was a great provider and loved his family. Mm-hmm. But something happened that just shook or turned his world upside down. And then I agree. I think that an evil spirit latched onto him. This spirit happened to be a name, kind of like as we've heard many times. They give the names Legion, or demons will come up with other names too. They'll call themselves. This particular evil entity was called the Wendigo.
They are everything bad that's represented within the tribe and the Indigenous community. So I know a lot of other Indigenous tribes in North America have kind of taken it up as well. Yeah. Is that the only story associated with this? Are there others that have been documented in history? There is another one. You'll like this one. This is Jack Fiddler, also Indigenous, and he was called Wendigo Killer. And this happened in the 1830s, 1840s. He was also a Cree First Nations. Now, like his father before him, he was a famous shaman, loved by his people. So he was famous, like his father before him, a famous shaman, and he was loved by his people. And if they were sick or something, they could go to him, and he would go and get a root or an herb or make them up something, and they would be right as rain the next day. And he was considered one who described indigos. And he said that some people, indigos, would be sent after him, his family, or his tribe. Now, he claimed that he had 14 successful dispatches or killed. Now, for a lot of these people, now he does say a lot of this took place in his own tribe during famine or sickness. And his people would, during their last hours of life, they would beg him because they were so afraid of becoming a Wendigo because of the sickness and the starvation. And they were so terrified of this. You know, today we might consider that an assisted suicide. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But they were so terrified of becoming Wendigos that he would beg, or they would beg him, you know, help me, I don't want to become a Wendigo. And they would ask him for assistance. Now, the police were somehow informed of this, and they were told that he killed more than 14 people, and he was arrested for multiple murders and a bunch of bogus charges. And they took him into custody. Now he escaped, and he himself was sick and in pain and didn't want to become a Wendigo. And when he escaped, he hung himself by a nearby tree, such as those bygone times. Yeah. So this was a man who actually helped eradicate Wendigos. Mm-hmm. Okay. And assisted and helped his people as best that he could. I think that was it was taken out of context, which I still see happening today. He was helping them. Look, when you're sick and you're in pain and you're terrified. Okay. You were doing for your people all that you can. Yeah. So we're not saying he became a Wendigo. We're saying that he eradicated Wendigos. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. And then they tried him for that. Because they thought tried to try him for that. They tried to try him. Okay. Yeah. On multiple accounts of murder, which that's not how that works for us people. Yeah. Before colonization, there was no suicide. You stuck to each other, you helped each other. There wasn't even a word for suicide. But if you felt the need that you had to go, and you were so unhappy and so depressed, and there was something wrong with you. It wasn't like the great shame that it is now. We are spiritual people, and if you need to go to the other side, then you go to the other side. It's very sad, but it was looked at in a different sort of way than it is today. Japanese samurai, they would commit suicide on a regular basis, and everybody's like, oh wow, yeah, but yeah, and nobody kind of frowns at that. So,
yeah, I mean, it was part of their culture, and you have all these cultures, different ideas, and for the Japanese, they would take the heads. First, they go through a whole ceremonial process, and then they would use the smaller blade and thrust that into there, and then the other individual is supposed to assist by taking the head off.
As you can't take the pain no more, they'll take your head off. So yeah.
If
different cultures, different beliefs. Yeah, different cultures, different belief systems. So, and it's all very fascinating.
Yes, it is. It just it opens your eyes more to about the subject of this, because so much you come across social media and you see things about this creature, and you're thinking, wow, is this something they're seeing in the woods? Is this something that's actual form of a monster that's out there? I mean, I haven't heard much on eyewitness accounts of a walking creature that of enormous size. Probably, anyway, I think they said they range from 10 to 14 feet. Enormous. But I wonder how much of this is that would be the Leshy. Yeah. You're very well right. I think you're spot on. It's
be the Leshy,
not the Wendigo.
A Wendigo is no taller than what we would be. Especially if it's a person who's out in the woods and they've been out there and they've turned cannibal.
Yeah.
Okay. So it could be me, it could be you, it could be my neighbor, and they're just emaciated.
Okay.
Because they are shunned from the tribe, depending on their circumstances, and they'll hide, and they're rare now. These things are very rare now.
This is not what everybody envisioned it to be.
Yes.
Because it's the wrong creature. The correct one is the Leshy. However, we have a Leshy that is a guardian of the forest, of the woods. And not evil, Robin?
It's benevolent to neutral.
Okay.
If you make it angry, you're in for a lot of trouble. But it will laugh, and it will sing, and it'll play fun little pranks. It's quite a good sport, because it also represents the spirit of the hunt. And in some stories, they say that young men will be sent to the Leshy to be taught how to hunt and respect nature.
Interesting.
If he happens upon lost children in the woods, he adopts them and teaches them how to survive on their own. So he adopts them into their own families. But to me, a Leshy is like if you go out in the woods and you find Merlin.
Oh, yeah.
That type of representation, the longer beard and the wisdom and the stern but caring, father or grandfather type. But he will play pranks. They're very harmless. He's a joker. He whistles in the woods. He can hear him laughing again. It's very rare to see him too, but you can always hear him laughing, and he'll talk to trees. He talks to animals, and he looks after them. He's kind but stern, I could say.
Okay. It kind of goes back to the subject of what we talked about a while back, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Where we have these little people. I don't want to go off subject here, but I just had to bring it. Because I know you're the pro when it comes to that. So,
with the little people, not the proto-pygmies, but the ones that are considered fairies, the Leshy is considered to be part of the fairy family.
Okay.
So it's not surprising that they would share a lot of the same traits.
Do you find yourself
liking kids?
Yeah. But do you find yourself, Robin, when you get on social media and you see people post pictures of the Wendigo, and it's a Leshy, do you feel the need to correct them? I had a feeling of that.
Like also TVs and movies, and it's gotten to the point where if it's not quite correct enough, I'll just go, I don't even want to watch it.
I
Like
understand.
this here, I'm like, it's become very I don't know what else to call it, but stereotypical for people to believe that all us First Nations and Native Americans believe the same thing and group us all into one big group. And I see that especially in our field where they'll use it as a crutch. Well, the Indians say this, and I'm like, well, which ones are that? All of them. I'm like, well, I am, and I don't believe that.
First of all, they use the wrong word. Indian actually should be using
Yeah, I'll explain
indigenous.
that. That's a big historical hiccup. Um, uh, just before colonization, and they were trying to find a quicker route to the Indies. When they landed here, they thought that they'd found it, and they thought they'd landed in India. Thus, this is why that stuck, and we're called Indians. It's not correct. You could call us Native Americans, First Nations, or by our tribe names. But like now, a lot of us don't like to be called Indians. Like I prefer not to be because it's incorrect. Like I prefer Indigenous or First Nations. And I also understand that over 100 years we've been called that, so it's going to take a long time to shake that off. Findings of the footprints in Mexico that says that we've been here for like 21,000 years. Oh yeah, of course. We've always said that we've been longer here than archaeologists say we have been. So it's nice to see that the people are starting to listen to us, especially in the scientific community. Another great example, not to get off topic, was Inuit Eskimos had a legend of something called the king bear, which is 2 and 3 times the size of modern polar bears. Nobody believed them, okay? They thought, well, this is just one of their stories, until fossil remains of a king bear was found. And
I remember
it
that.
is 2 and 3 times the size of a regular polar bear.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I remember seeing that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I loved it because I actually where I live now, just up the road from me, there was an Inuit family, and they would often talk to me about all their different folklores and oral histories about animals from up north. I don't have polar bears here. I'm too far south. But they would also talk about dire wolves, cave bears. Okay, and this is all part of our oral histories, which does go back to when we say, look, we have stories of our ancestors hunting mammoths, fighting dire wolves and saber cats and weird looking animals. I mean, like what was just a few years ago, we now know that we had hyenas here because some fossil remains of hyenas were found. And up until then, they didn't think that there were hyenas here. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why don't they just listen?
I have a theory about that, but maybe it's for another time.
That they don't want to know.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. This is considered to be the bad boy of cryptozoological research. After what I heard from you, how does it fit in cryptozoological? If it's a possible, I think, a strong case for possession by an evil entity, does it fit in this category, or should it be labeled under supernatural?
They're both, I believe. What makes it cryptozoological is because it is cryptic, in the same way that little people are cryptic, because it falls into that category. It could also fall into a sort of category of hominidology. Okay, think of the story in the Bible about Legion, as we were talking about earlier. The Wendigo and this gentleman that was possessed by so many spirits have the same attributes in appearance and how they looked. A Wendigo has a very squeaky voice because his throat is dry. So they can talk, but they are weak until the hunt comes. And then they're fueled by the fact that they're going to eat. So they get a burst of energy as they're hunting people. Like I said, it's rare now. But do I still think that it's possible? Oh, absolutely. I recently did a podcast about wild people. And some of the sightings of them were very much like a Wendigo. Even the color of their skin, and they just look so terrible. They have no lips, so all you see is teeth and things like this here, and it's very scary to think that even in this day and age that people are going hungry and they're I wouldn't say go crazy, but go crazy or become possessed, and they're out living in the woods preying on other people. I mean, a lot of these stories just aren't, allegorical or urban legends. It does happen. I know there was a family in the Appalachian Mountains that did prey upon people, and that was like in the 1700s, early 1800s. They were all arrested and put to death for their crimes.
Yeah. How far back does this Wendigo go? Does it go hundreds of years, or is it thousands?
Thousands.
Okay.
Thousands of years, yeah. Because Wendigos are associated with cold and harsh winters.
So I guess you could say the beginning of time.
I would guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can only go as far back as we know from when we came here. Nobody's going to like what I'm going to say, but not all of us came across the land bridge. Not all of us came across from Beringia. There was times of melting when the glaciers froze and melt, and we were able to cross at different locations. Now, saying that doesn't mean that it was always like that. But our emergent story says that my people came from the east.
Did you ever get a chance to check out the movie on Netflix called The Ritual?
Yes.
Okay. Did they
one of my favorites.
Yeah? Okay. Well, when I saw that too, I'm like, well, I know they didn't make it say Wendigo. Thank God. Because that would be wrong. Well, what do you think how well they did with their interpretation of the Leshy?
Well, it's North mythology.
Okay.
And with not from the Marvel movies, but with Loki being Loki, that could be one of his offspring. I mean, Fenrir the giant dog was his offspring. The world snake is also his offspring. Hel or Helen is also his offspring. She was a giantess. So with Loki, he could produce anything. So in that movie, which I do really like actually, because it's different. It's not like your typical monster movie, so it's a bit different. So what did they call it? I can't remember what they said it was, but it's an offspring of Loki. It could produce offspring that look all wild and crazy in all different times. We should encourage everybody just to watch that on Netflix, just for something different. And if you want to get creeped out, go ahead and watch it. Just because it's so different. Because I had to rewind it and pause, and I'm like, oh, that's really creepy. Well, it's what I call creepy cool.
Yeah.
Like it's a really cool looking monster, and it still has that elements of creepiness in it.
That's what I like. I tend to like these films that have a psychological depth to them.
Yeah, make you think.
Yeah, and then I also like the ones that don't show so much, but you know it's there. A fine example of this is an old Disney movie called Watcher in the Woods with Betty Davis.
Oh, yes, with Betty Davis.
It's an excellent movie. It's so overlooked, and it has a great psychological thrill to it because you don't see the creature or this fallen bean or whatever it is, Narek. Karen spelled backwards. I gotta do that to somebody's window. I should do that to somebody's window. But anyway, it's so well done. You feel like I don't need to see it. It's in the story. It's in there and it just has a great feel of captivating you.
Yeah, a classic there that you're scared until you're not, and then they got the music to go with it, and the acting was so well because you're getting right into the movie. Like, I want to see what they're seeing and stuff like this. So yeah, it was really.
I mean, even if you don't see
but
it,
not
then,
so much where you don't see the monster right until the very end, because then that's boring because you only see that monster for like 2 seconds.
yeah.
And it has to be a good storyline too, even if the monster is in the makeup and everything, it's no good and it's very low budget. If the storyline is good and you're captivated by it, or in my case, I'm captivated by it, I will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because as long as it's reeling you in and keeping you watching, then it's a good monster movie. I love monster movies. Like I saw American Werewolf in London when I was 6 years old. I wasn't scared. I'm like, well, that kind of looks like a bear. It's cool, but it's not cool. That scary.
More like a werebear.
Yeah, like a werebear. Yeah, but it wasn't that scary to me. And
you're just enjoying the effects because the effects were groundbreaking back then.
And the storyline is good. So yeah, and lots of movies like Howling is my favorite werewolf movie. Because
the transformation of that is amazing.
Oh, I think it was Fangora back during that time. I could be wrong, but people thought it was real because the makeup and the animatronics was so good. People thought that was a real werewolf. Okay, it's not everybody. The guy that transferred into the werewolf was the doctor in the Star Trek series.
Yes, like remember
Robert Picardo, not a werewolf.
He's okay. He's all right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like what happened with the Blair Witch.
In the movie Legend, he also played the witch in the swamp.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Now that is a creepy hag. I can say that.
She was. But then Legend's a great movie. I mean, look,
it is overlooked.
You got
really.
Little people and fairies and unicorns and, good classic of good versus evil. You can't get better than that. Tim Curry, excellent as always.
Yeah, I hope they don't try to remake that with too much CGI. We don't need CGI up the wazoo here. But I've been hearing that they're doing some remakes on like The Labyrinth and Legend. That's supposedly in the works. Ugh. I can understand like a second chapter to Labyrinth where she's older and maybe she has a daughter, but Legend is best to leave alone. Unless
it is. It was good as it was, considering the amount of trouble they had making that movie, and the set burned down at one point. And just sometimes these classic like songs should just be left alone.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Whoops, we're getting off topic here.
I was just about to say we're getting off topic.
What more can you tell me about this thing? About this? About maybe there's more history here that I'm overlooking.
In the 1850s, a gentleman, and I can't remember where it was, and I was just looking it up before we got online here. North Spirit Lake is what I got in mind. But he was an English gentleman, and he was a captain in the British Army, and he came to take command at a fort, and he had heard the stories of Wendigos and other Indigenous folklore, and he didn't believe any of it, and he was a bit of a drinker, and within a week he started acting out of character. He was getting lazy and he was sleeping all the time. The doctor was called in to see if he was sick or had come down with pneumonia. Nothing. There wasn't anything wrong with him. But like I said, within a week, he started not acting himself. He started yelling at people, throwing things at people, not wanting to be bothered. He got a huge appetite. It was like he couldn't get enough to eat. And his cook went into his room one day and she didn't come back out. He wouldn't open the door, and this went on for a couple of days. He had let 2 other people go in and they didn't come back out. So finally, the other, his colonels or captains under him broke down the door, and he had eaten 3 people.
I sense a pattern here. Well, most likely. So this was an English gentleman who settled in the 1850s.
Mm-hmm.
Is this by chance in the same? Would this be in Canada where he settled?
In Canada, yeah.
Okay. So I think it's right to say there's a pattern going here where you have these people who are coming into these areas. Is it possible that this spirit is just inhabiting these areas? And they're warning them, hey, when you got here, just so you know, there's a local legend here about this evil spirit that could grab hold of you. So be careful. And they just kind of don't heed the warning. And it just grabs onto them, enters into their lives in some way, and takes over them, easily manipulating them. And then before
the Wendigo, the Wendigo is here in Canada and around the Great Lakes region.
Yeah.
Also, in your area as well, where we have really cold, harsh winters. So it's pretty much all over Canada. Other tribes have adopted it into their folklore as well.
It also reminds me of something else. I don't know if you're familiar with the Mahaha, I think it's called the Mahaha, a spirit of some sort in Alaska. If you go to a certain area, it tries to fool you, and it tries to take over you. But I think the only way you can defeat it is to cross the river, because it can't pass through water. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. But it
has a couple of different variation names, but yes. And what's really interesting about that is I've always thought of the original story by Washington Irving about the headless horseman. He couldn't chase Ichabod Crane over the running water, over that bridge.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's true, because again, we have a demonic spirit, potentially. I'm just going to say it, demonic spirit. And there's certain things that they're limited by, or certain things they cannot do or cross over that keeps them at bay. But it wouldn't surprise me that this thing is still out there inhabiting those areas. It's like when you go into these dark woods and there's unknown aspects to it, auras to them, that somehow these things just grab a hold of. Kind of like when you go to a cemetery. There are a lot of disturbing beings that are in some of these cemeteries. For instance, over by me, we have one of the most haunted cemeteries in all of North America, and it's called the Lee Mission. You can go there and take a picture at night, and there's orbs flying all over the place. There's some people capture.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it. I actually asked a friend of mine to go and take some pictures for me there, and he wouldn't do it.
Oh, you're kidding! I'm like real close to it. Literally close to it. So if you need something, you let me know.
This was like 4 or 5 years ago, and he's like, "Well, I drive past it or near it for work." I'm like, "Well, go get me some pictures." I'm like, "Daytime, nighttime, I want to see." I'm not going over there. Like, why not? Just go get me some pictures. I ain't going over there. Like, why not? Do you know how haunted that place is? And I'm like, "Oh, come on, chicken, come on."
I've been there twice, and I can tell you this. It was a big mistake taking my nephews with me, but we were intrigued. You know, what happened to the cat? Curiosity got the best of him, right? So we go out there. It's about 2 a.m. and it's pitch black out there, but you can smell something. And we're watching just from outside the gate or the fence, and something begins to move. Just freaked all of us out. And my nephew was like, oh, did you see it? Oh, and as we were trying to walk away, the smell was atrocious. It was horrible, as if the thing was following. And we get in our car and we leave, and I could still sense something was still trying to follow. So in some ways, this is why I no longer do paranormal research because I've had close calls that will scare the hell out of you. And Lee Mission is one of those places that is just full of spirits. Yes, it's true. I mean, actually, I knew a friend who captured the images of those orbs, and they go from the cemetery all the way far to the south side, and they just keep going down. And you can see if you go down that area where the more of the city is, you see the orbs out there too, at different times of the night.
The Wendigo, you could compare it to a ghoul.
Yeah.
Their appearances are similar, and the only difference is a ghoul will eat corpses. And with a ghoul, again, that goes back to cannibalism. During times of famine, and people aren't quite right, and they're starving, and they'll go to, this is before people used formaldehyde and such on bodies, but they were just buried as is, and people would go and dig up these corpses and eat them because they were starving.
Oh gosh.
And this is the only food that they could get. I mean, you had people living on the streets who were stealing food and whatnot, but that only gets you so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're very similar. They're always, even in behaviors and somewhat in appearance, and they're sneaking around.
Yeah. And like you had mentioned, though, again, we don't get as much information these days about them anymore. It was kind of back. What's the last confirmed mention or sighting potentially of Wendigo? Do you know?
There was one others in the very early 1900s.
Okay.
Around 1920. And that was about it.
It makes me wonder.
They're supposed to be seen on and off today, but then when you read the description, it's kind of like spooky pasta.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have to wonder how credible the sources are, where they come from, if there's any real truth to them. Fascinating.
Well, we do have we actually have a spooky story that I've been hearing on and off for years and years now about the stick people.
I've heard of
it's
that.
Actually, I know that it's a very creepy story, and it even gives me shivers. And this took place long before colonization. This particular tribe was having a hard time gathering food and hunting because the animals were scarce. And no matter what they did, they couldn't save just enough food. So they had enough to get them through just the first part of the winter. And of course, winter came early, and it was cold and harsh and bitter. And it is the worst winter any of the tribes had seen for years. They started to run out of food. So they would go to their nearest tribe and ask for food. Can you help us out? And so that tribe would give them some food. And they started to run out of food again. And they would go to another tribe and they would help them out, because this is what you do. You help each other out. So during the midwinter, they're completely out of food. They have nothing to eat. They go and ask the other tribes for food. They can't help, or their people are going to starve. Everything is snowed over. There's no animals. They can't even find squirrels. They can't find ground squirrels. There is nothing. The grass is gone. They can't eat grass. And this goes on for quite a few days and into the weeks, and they're all starving. And their minds start to get away from them. They can't talk because their throats are dry. And they started losing their hair, and their hair started falling out in patches, and some had started to go bald. Their fingers became bony, and their fingernails became broken. Their clothes wouldn't fit, and their clothes were hanging off of them. And they started losing their minds. And they came up with a plan. They were desperate. They had to do something. So one night, this particular tribe, who cannot talk but only whistle to each other to communicate, did something horrible and unforgiving. They snuck into the closest tribe to them and slaughtered the entire tribe and ate them. They couldn't talk. They only whistled back and forth to each other. And the growling in their stomach stopped. No more whistling. These were called the stick people. And you're not supposed to whistle at night because they think it's you communicating to them to come and get something to eat.
Wow.
But by morning, the entire tribe, their stomachs were full and the other tribe was gone. And soon the incident was forgotten about until another tribe a couple months later disappeared. So don't whistle at night.
Yeah. Ooh, that is creepy. And
yeah, it gives you a shiver. Like,
is this based on fact? It doesn't surprise me if it is.
I don't know, but I've been hearing it on and off for years.
Okay, because we know cannibalism is real, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
This wouldn't surprise me at all if it was true. But that is
yeah,
creepy.
I don't know if it is true, but I think it's a great story and it's a great allegorical tale. Be prepared for winter. Do your best you can to share with your neighbors.
Yeah.
Take in who you can. And then it's also things you do when you get desperate. Things you don't think that you could do, you might do. So yeah, it's a great allegorical tale.
Yeah, I agree. Well, unfortunately, it looks like our time has come to an end. I know we could go longer, but unfortunately, I'll have to call it good for now. But this is what I love about Robin. She comes to the table with a lot of things here. She did a good job telling that story, didn't she? And I really appreciate all the information that you have shared. A lot of us had wondered, and I think it was important to bring it out properly with truth to it. And I agree. And I do think that this thing, the Wendigo, is, well, it's not this little guy here.
It's not that.
No. But I definitely think that this is real, okay, that it needs to be avoided. It's something you have to learn from and become strong and avoid. But I also think that there was something in those areas inhabiting the lands that may have been possessing people and taking hold of them. So I do agree. I do know these things are out there. They're real. They happen in our world. A lot of people would prefer not to talk about it. I understand that. But someone's got to talk about it. Someone's got to bring it up, right? And that's why we do this. And that's why it's important to have voices such as Robin's on this show. So I appreciate her time.
I'm all about teaching and learning and getting past the disinformation and misinformation and stereotypical things that are thought of us. It's difficult for other Indigenous peoples to talk about these things because of those things.
Yes, it is.
We're still misunderstood as it is. I mean, you can just, with the wealth of information that is out there about us today, pick up a book, look online from a credible source, please.
Yes.
and learn about us. I mean, we are not the savages we are always made out to be. We don't run around scalping wagon trains. I mean, we have cultures and we're all very different, and yet we're all the same.
They're all God's people too. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's important to know the truth about them. Yeah. Don't just take, what one person says for granted. There's two sides to each story, but I agree with her. We're overlooking the most important parts to the Indigenous people that we can learn a lot from. So, very important. Okay, Robin.
Try to understand us. It's try to understand us and from where we come from and our perspective. I mean, we have such a wide range of freedoms of beliefs, because if you force choice, it's not a true choice. So yeah, learn as much as you can about us. We are all the same, but we're very varied at the same times. We don't all believe the same things. So it's yeah, don't stereotype us that way, that like we don't all own casinos, we don't all live on reservations, we all don't have long hair. And our belief systems are varied. And I think very much that if you do learn about us, you're really going to enjoy it. Our oral histories, traditions, and beliefs are very much rooted in the nature around us. I mean, we are the original nature babies. I mean, hippies got their ideas from us.
They stole that one. So Métis Dene.
Métis Dene, yeah.
Okay. Robin, thank you so much for your time again. It's always a pleasure to have you, always a pleasure to hear your voice. Thank you for coming on this network and sharing what you know.
Thank you for having me. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact me via Facebook.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And then if you want to know even more than that, I encourage you to go to strangerealms.com, or is it .com or is it .net?
It's .net.
.net. I had to correct myself. strangerealms.net. Thank you so much, Robin. We will chat again soon.
Thanks for having me back.
Okay. We'll see you next time. And keep up with your studies, and I look forward to seeing more of what you're going to do in the future to come.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. God bless. To conclude, I'll leave you with this. Evil exists in this world. I remember a certain panel by one Christopher Lee. The audience asked him if he owned any books on the occult, to which Lee said, "No, never. And if you're not careful, something like that will destroy your soul." Well, he's correct. Because evil exists in this world. I remember an account that happened some years back. There was a husband and wife who truly believed that all people were good in nature, and that most people who were considered evil were just misunderstood. These people were avid explorers. They liked to travel and bicycle around the world. They chose to go to Afghanistan, and they were warned not to. As they were bicycling through a canyon, a truck passed them by. They waved. The truck then spun around, headed towards them, driving them off the cliff as they tumbled down off their bicycles. The men decided to get out of the truck, grabbed their machetes. They walked over to the fallen couple and proceeded to behead them. This was the same couple that believed all people were genuinely good and that no one was evil. Yet evil exists in this world. There's a saying that light and darkness will come together in balance, coexisting. This is usually a New Age philosophy, which is also a very dangerous one. But my friends, evil and light do not balance each other. One must be vanquished, and one will, evil. Praise God for that. Because evil exists in this world. The Wendigo is a true thing. I believe to be very real. A force that was inhabiting the Canadian woods, the Great Lake area, and people were warned to stay away, but they didn't heed the warning, and it devoured them. An evil spirit, demonic, powerful, hard to overcome. It wouldn't surprise me if this being is still alive and well in these woods. Yes, it may have been eradicated for a short time, but still, stories survive. Cannibalism is real, been around since the beginning of time. And this creature, this demonic presence, this spirit, in some ways is thriving. You can find it when those choose to surrender to it. It makes me think as a believer, as a Christian, if people who are not believers easily succumb to the dangers of demon possession, well, it may be in fact true. That's a terrifying thought, because evil exists in this world. But there was one who overcame it and shed his blood for all of us. And it wasn't about finding religion, because he himself said, I am not of religion. I didn't come here to give the world religion. I came here to save it. He was right when they nailed his hands to the cross. Can you imagine what that's like, to have a nail pierce your wrists? It's torment. No being can last long on the cross. I believe it was 6 days is the longest that any man has lived before dying. And if one man is so willing to give of himself to save millions, it's worth looking into. I'm not talking about finding religion or going to a church. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a relationship with a loving God who so much wants to be a part of your life, if you will just let him in. Christianity is not a religion, but a relationship with the one true God. The world has categorized it as religion. That's because they don't understand it, and they may never will. So in the comfort of your own home, the privacy of your own home, wherever you are, remember this: you can always be forgiven as long as you confess. You don't have to go to a man to do that. That is absolutely false. That was for a different time. You can do it anywhere, as God is everywhere, ready to listen and forgive you. And though we may let go at times, he never does. Once you're saved, and once you mean it from the heart and out the mouth, it's taken, it's received, and the rest is history. For atheists, they have no hope when they die. They believe you should do as you please, for tomorrow you die. You return to the earth. But we have a hope in someone else. Hope that we will see our loved ones again, triumphantly, victorious over death. And that's the assurance I love, knowing I'll get to see my loved ones again when I pass away. And that'll be the same for you when you choose him as your Savior. Simple. This being that we spoke about is real, and I still think it's out there somewhere, ready to possess the next victim. Well, it has been an absolute joy having Robin Moonshadow here. I always enjoy our conversations. But to leave you now, remember to always seek the truth. And may God bless every one of you. On the other side of the screen, I am your host, Jacob Guerra. So long.